This is all part of the practice of learning how to be mindful in the midst of the hurricane. It's not an easy thing to sit around and do nothing.
Your mind starts to play tricks on you.
That's because you're alone with your thoughts that you've been avoiding throughout your lifetime. You have to face them straight on. There's no place to hide. There's no place to go. You will have more success in your business because you don't have the angst and anxiety and all the crap that gets stirred up when the balance isn't there. It's up to us to cultivate a culture where they're really excited to come in and they feel like they're heard and that they're cared for in the totality of their lives. That's how you grow a company and turn it into something really special.
Man, that got me fired up. We're in Harbor Springs, Michigan. I know that's crazy. You probably don't even know where that's at on the map, but check it out. It's way up north in Michigan before you get to the UP. And we have an amazing episode today with Rob Dube, the co-author with Gino Wickman on the book Shine. I interviewed Gino a few episodes back. You obviously know him as the founder of EOS and the books Traction and Rocket Fuel, among others. But I am now going to complete the conversation. We went deep with Gino on the 3 discoveries. We talked today with Rob Dube about the 10 disciplines and his work with what he's doing with that company and the future of that. But also, we're going to learn about his entrepreneurial journey of how he sold his company and then bought it back just a short time later, how Gino helped him with his business, how they became friends, and 15 to 20 years later, they started this 10 disciplines to get this out to the world, to maximize your energy and have inner peace. It's an amazing conversation. You won't want to miss it. Let's get into the episode. So, Rob, you've had an incredible journey.
I have.
Through entrepreneurship, mindfulness, and conscious leadership. Mm-hmm. When you look back, what would you have to say were the key moments that led you to where you are now?
The key moments that led me where I am today. Well, let me think for a moment. I think after being married, I got married kind of young.
How old?
Is this where you want me to go?
I want you to go. I want you
22.
I want you to go wherever.
Yeah.
Like, because here's what I know. Everyone's listening. I got this amazing author. You've done amazing things in the world. You've transformed because I know your inner story a little bit, and you've shared that. I think you're pretty public about it.
Yeah.
You've shifted how you were when you were a kid in early adult life to this new level of. Some people call it spirituality. I'm calling it conscious leadership. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't like that word. They're scared of that word, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't want them to be scared right now. But I want them to hear, like, what was the shift? Was there a pivotal moment or a defining moment that you said, you know what, I think I need to take another approach to how I want to live life?
So why I might not just jump into an answer for that is it's not really the way I think. The way I think really is just every moment is an opportunity to grow and learn. And, I try not to look back and say, that was the moment. That was the big aha. That was the definition. Wasn't like that. Certainly we all have things that seem to stick out in our minds, in our life experiences that were maybe a little bit more impactful than others.
All right. So what originally sparked your interest in mindfulness and meditation?
So I had a great deal of anxiety because growing up, and I write about this in Shine, the book that I co-authored with Gino Wickman, I just had an awful lot of trauma. And that carried over into my adult life. And so I was just anxious all the time, for a million reasons. And I didn't like the feeling of that. I don't know many people that do. Some people might thrive on it, but most people don't want to be anxious. And I tried a lot of different things, and meditation was something that seemed to work for me quite well. I don't think it's for everybody, but it was for me.
What was your first experience with that? Like, who introduced you to it? What was the first time you sat still and did a meditation?
So we're up in northern part of Michigan right now. Thank you for coming up here, by the way.
It's beautiful.
I'm grateful to you for making such a long trip up here.
And thank you to the Otis. We're at
And
the
to
Otis
and
in Harbor
this,
Springs.
this really special hotel that we're at, lovingly restored. And anyway, it was up here, and it was summertime. I had recently sold my business, and I was very anxious. And I had an article about meditation sitting on a table. And I looked over it, and it was just coincidental that it was there, but it wasn't coincidental, obviously,
There are no
right?
coincidences.
So I reviewed the article. I went over to a chair, and I followed what the article said and I committed to 5 minutes. And when I was done, I felt better, and I was like, wow, that was pretty cool.
So no one dragged you into a meditation hall
No.
or a yoga practice or anything like that
No.
and beat you over the head and said, come, you got to do
You
this.
must try this. No, in fact, I was actually very skeptical about meditation. I felt like maybe there was a religious connotation behind it, and I wasn't interested in any of that. I'd been turned off by that growing up in the way that I did. So I had my antennae up about that on everything.
So I don't forget, I do want to ask you about that. How did you grow up? What kind of religion? Was there like a religious practice that you guys kind of followed?
Yeah, so my family was Catholic,
Oh, okay.
and I had my first communion.
Okay.
And
So you did all the Catholic things.
I did all the Catholic things, but then my parents got divorced, and at that time,
It's very anti-Catholic, isn't
was
it?
an
You usually have to stay together no matter what, even if it's miserable.
yeah, well, they didn't. And so they ended up leaving the church, really, is what ended up happening. And so everything just came to a halt. And so that changed a lot of things for me.
So you mentioned that you found this meditation after you sold your business.
Yeah,
And how old were you when you sold your business?
I think it was about 31.
31 years old.
Yeah.
And so, that's a good decade after your childhood type of life, right?
Yeah.
And so you were still having the experiences of like the anxiety and all that, like all the way up until like that
Oh, yeah.
that point. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
How did you, and I know that your company, Image One, right?
Yeah.
I remember reading about this Image One company in the book Traction.
Uh-huh.
It's like very, Gino tells a lot of stories in that book, but like for whatever reason, that story, that Image One story, I just always remember that. Before I even met you, before I even knew who you were, but then like when I saw you at a conference and it said Rob Dube, Image One, I was like, wait, that's the guy in the book. I'm like, and then it really started to click, like, oh, like Gino helped this company, with their EOS, right?
That's
But
right.
tell me a little bit about how you got started with Image One and what were some of the, I'm going to ask you about this, maybe you don't think about it like this, but what were some of those key moments or defining moments in your entrepreneurial journey in the early years?
Yeah, so my best friend and I started selling blow pop lollipops out of our locker in high school. And then we had all kinds of businesses. So we were just entrepreneurs early on. Back then, entrepreneurship isn't like it is today, which is, a lot of people want to get into entrepreneurship. So, many were telling us, take a different path. But we jumped in and we started this business recycling toner cartridges. That was our business. We grew the company for 8 or 9 years.
Somebody's got to do it, right?
Yeah, somebody had to do it. I don't know why it was us. We were horrible at it, honestly. But we grew the company for 8 or 9 years, and we were just, it was so disorganized. It was so dysfunctional. It really stressed our friendship, really hard. And that was part of the anxiety. And I loved my best friend, my brother by another mother, and now we're business partners. And we were like wanting to strangle each other every day.
Can you give me a story that would kind of summarize all that up and let the people at home like really feel like what that felt like?
We would just argue. We would have ego arguments. So I can't even give you a good example. They're probably all so small and meaningless, but they seem so important at the time. Who knows? It could be like, hey, we should take $50 more per week. No, we shouldn't. We should put it back in the business. I mean, literally $50.
Well, it kind of reminds me. I was just listening to a podcast that you and Gino did on the Shed and Shine podcast, where you
Yeah.
guys talked about what you guys do in Rob and Gino fight, and I
Rob
like
and
couldn't
Gino
wait to listen to that because I was like, I've known you for a little while now. I'm thinking Rob Dube fight, like there's no, like I could see Gino like having like strong opinions and things like that, but I'm thinking like there's no way Rob fights. Like that's crazy. But yeah, anytime that you're in a partnership, whether it's a spouse or a business partner, right?
Yeah.
Like there's going to be disagreements on the strategic direction forward, right? Or maybe a decision that's being made,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And usually there's someone that wants to make a faster decision or a slower decision or a
Yeah.
different decision, right? And those are sometimes hard to navigate.
Yeah.
You talked about selling your business, and I know I've heard your story many times. And then I think the most fascinating part about your story was the fact that you sold it, and then you somehow got to buy it back a year later. And I've never really got to ask you about like that, but tell me a little bit about how that went down because that seems kind of cool.
Yeah. So let me finish part
All
of the
right.
last
Yeah,
story,
go
and
ahead.
that was the 8 or 9 years that we were really disorganized and at each other's, push or at our limits with each other. We decided we need help. And so we asked in our networks, we were both in EO at the time. And so we asked in our networks, and somebody said, "Hey, I know this guy. He's starting up a new thing. He's consulting with businesses." And it was Gino Wickman. So we brought him in, and he kind of did his pitch with us. And so we decided to engage with him. It was not called EOS. There was no book called Traction. We were his guinea pigs. But it changed our lives. It was ridiculous. And we embraced what is now called the EOS process and got our act together. Fast forward a couple years, we were able to win a very large account in another market close to Detroit. And we unseated a public company. That public
What does that mean? Unseated a public company.
they were the incumbent who had the business,
Oh.
and then this company put it out to bid, and we won.
Oh, wow.
We were this little company up in Detroit, happened to be in Columbus, Ohio. And we were this little company up in Detroit. We had no business even being in the mix. And we ended up winning the business. So that company, about a month later, contacted us. And they said, they just were honest. They said, "I can't believe you unseated us." And we want to talk to you more about what happened there. What are you guys doing? And so we engaged with them. Later on, a couple months later, they said, "Would you have any interest in selling?" And we had never even thought about that at that point.
Interesting.
And so we kind of joked about it because we just kept saying every step of the way, "Let's just see how this goes. Let's just see." So, we'd give them this, and then we'd have some back and forth, and then it would be quiet. And we had no attachment. We weren't excited. We weren't scared. We just young, like, let's just see where this goes. Literally, up until the end, we had not even talked to an attorney. Then we finally engaged an attorney, and he said, "Where are you in the process?" And we were like, "Toward the end." And he's like, "And now you're bringing us in?" He couldn't believe it. So we ended up selling the company to them. And we had a 3-year contract to run it as a division, a wholly owned subsidiary. And of course, within like 6 months, we were already dreaming up what our next thing was going to be. And they all of a sudden started to have a lot of shakeup. Different executives were leaving, fired. CEO got fired. New CEO comes in. We're like, "What's going on?" He contacts us. He says, "I'm looking at all of our business, all of our divisions. This makes no sense to me. And I want it off the balance sheet. Would you guys be interested? We'll make it fast and easy. You can have it back." So we got the company back. Totally, the whole thing, lucky.
I mean, did you make was there like a little influx of cash that you got like as a signing, like to like take
Yes.
and then did you
Yes,
get the,
more than
did
an
you,
influx.
did you get the company back at pennies on the dollar or like,
Zero.
oh, like they just gave it to you. So
Yes.
basically they just gifted you money because the old CEO
Yes.
basically made a decision based on his visionary skills. Quick
He was a
start.
flaming
he
visionary.
was
He
a
was a
quick,
flaming
he was
visionary.
he's a quick start. He got mad that you took business from him. He's like, screw it, we're just gonna buy him. Makes a rush decision, pays you a bunch of money for your business. You and your buddy are happy. You guys, oh man, this is so cool. That guy gets fired. This other guy's like, dude, what the heck did they do that for? We'll just give it back to him. We just want it off. We don't want to have to deal with it
You
anymore,
got
really.
it.
But you got to keep all your cash
Yeah.
and all your people
All the people,
and all your customers.
all the customers. We'd grown, so
You'd
we had
actually
more customers.
good for you, man.
Like I say,
That
lucky.
sounds
Lucky.
like I don't. You probably are not familiar with David Portnoy from
Oh
Barstool
yes, I am.
Sports. Oh, you
Yes, I
are.
am. Yeah,
Oh,
my son follows him.
so are you familiar with his story? What he just did?
Yes, yeah.
That was
it's cool.
Where
It's very
where
cool.
they basically bought his company back for $1.
Yeah.
And like gets to run it. Now, if he does end up ever selling it again, I think he has to split it with him. But like at this point, like, he can just keep just taking distributions and keep making money for himself.
Yeah, he's
and-
okay.
Yeah, he's gonna be okay. I think they bought it for like $400 million or something like that, and he got it back for $1.
Uh-huh.
Like I'm talking within like 6 months or 8 months.
These are real stories.
These are real
Yeah,
stories.
this does happen, and it's not entirely uncommon.
Yeah. Well, because people
Yeah.
make quick decisions.
They do, and it's not their money.
And, and it's hard to stay committed, sometimes. Anyway, well, that was awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I know that I know you from your work with Gino and the book Shine,
Yeah.
right? And the 10 disciplines. But you have another book that you wrote many years ago
Yeah.
called Do Nothing, which I find very interesting because when I think of you and this whole 10 disciplines world, I think about discipline number 4, and like you're the epitome of be still, right? You're the very zen, very chill, very thoughtful, like you're the be still guy, like at scale, right? Which is very different from a lot of us, like, high functioning ADHD entrepreneurs, visionaries, quick starts, you know what I mean? It's like, that's impressive because like you're very unique in that world. That's still new to a lot of us, this being mindfulness.
Sure.
What prompted you to write the book, Do Nothing, and what did you hope readers would take away from it?
So, shortly after that story that I shared a little bit ago about practicing a meditation for 5 minutes, I got curious. I had to know all the facts about meditation to make sure that it was everything that they said it was. And now I look back on that and I have to laugh. And I took on a more serious practice and started going on silent retreats for 7 to 10 days at a time. And I started doing that twice a year. And all my entrepreneur buddies like you, when I would come back, they would make fun of me in a good way, and in a good spirited way. And one of my friends said to me, "What do you do when you go on these retreats? Sit around, do nothing the whole time?" And I said, "Yeah, actually, you kind of do. And you've been on a retreat, but it's hard." It's like it's not an easy thing to sit around and do nothing. And why? Why is that? That's because you're alone with your thoughts that you've been avoiding throughout your lifetime. And you have to face them straight on. There's no place to hide. There's no place to go. And that's a beautiful thing when you start to embrace it, because you start to see patterns and you start to see how your mind works in a completely different way. And as it relates to entrepreneurship and being in a leadership role, that's really useful. Never mind the fact that it's just useful in life in general. If you need a reason to be a better business person and that's your reasoning, go for it. But you'll be a better person in general because you start to see things in a different light. And then my friend he made a joke and he said, "You ought to write a book." And that's a great title, Do Nothing. And so that's the title, Do Nothing, the most rewarding leadership challenge you will ever take. And what I hope that an entrepreneur or a leader will take away from it is maybe they'll get curious about what it's like to be silent for some period of time. They don't have to run off and do a meditation retreat, although I think it's a great life experience, even if you just try it once, just to see what that's all about for an extended period of time. It's much different than when you're at home and you're sitting in silence, say for 20, 30 minutes. You know that, Benny.
Mm-hmm.
What do you notice the difference being?
Well, the quick start entrepreneur says like, oh, that sounds like a challenge to try to be silent for 3 days or 4 days or whatever. I'm like, all right, I can go do that. And then you quickly, I don't know if I would recommend doing it cold turkey like that. See, my wife took me to a couple meditations, a couple yoga classes, so I got little doses of it. I did a float spa first for like an hour, like 17 minutes is what I lasted the first time. Second time I made it the whole hour. So I got a little bit of like prep work going into a 3 or 4 day silent retreat. But when you're at the silent retreat, the first, you're tough. You're like, I can do this. The first 6 hours, not a big deal, man. It's just like, oh, cool. I don't have to talk to nobody. It's kind of nice. But then you go to reach for the phone that you're not supposed to have. It's almost like an involuntary muscle to like go to your hip, right? Like, because you want to check that email, you want to check that text. Are you missing something? Oh, you want to look at this app, right? Like whatever you're used to doing, right? Oh, at the meditation retreat I went to, you're not even allowed to listen to music because that's doing something, right? And so it's like, oh, like I can't. And then your mind starts to play tricks on you. That's when the voice in your head says, why are you really doing this? No different than if you're on a diet and you're trying to like not eat something that you're used to eating, or if you're trying to come off of a caffeine habit or a drug habit, or anything that you're trying to break your normal routine with. You get to a certain point where the ego or the mind starts to say like, are you sure you really want to do this? And then the voice gets really loud. And when you have nothing else to do, and you have to sit there with that voice, I mean, it's pretty powerful. Our friend Dr. Doug Brackman talks about those monkeys jumping around in your head. Mm-hmm. And you ain't kidding. Like if we got 11 of them tamed, the one's just going loud, right? And so it's a very interesting practice. But I think the more that you practice it, you start to become aware, mm-hmm. right? You get to actually be the what do they say?
Observer.
The observer. That's the word I was like. Yes, you get to be the observer of those thoughts, right? And it's a good way for, especially us quick starts, to be able to like kind of slow down the urges, right, that come into the back of our head and then shoot out our forehead, and a lot of times come out our mouth or come out through our actions, right, which makes us inherently a great entrepreneur. We're able to do 55 different things, 12 different ways, and we're like 70% good at all of them. But it doesn't allow for a peaceful life. Mm-hmm. And there's always a lot of chaos and stress. That's why I love everything that you've been able to do with your life through entrepreneurship and then through this mindfulness.
And what I always wonder is, does it make you a great entrepreneur? Maybe that's what we think or what we've witnessed great entrepreneurs looking like. But is that really being a great entrepreneur? In other words, when you slow yourself down and you learn how to do that with intention, would you actually make better decisions and get wherever you're headed faster without all the angst and all the mess that you leave in your wake? I'm not saying I have the answer. I'm just throwing out the question.
I hang out with mostly small business owners that started from scratch. They're founders that like started from nothing.
Yeah.
But they didn't do nothing to start from nothing. So they had to do a lot. So like, even stories of like, Steve Jobs and Jeff Bezos, it seems like in those early years, they all started like that. But they've all found, they all found quickly after the startup phase that that's not sustainable. Yeah. And then I think they've all had different paths on like how they've, whether it's been through delegation, whether it's been through experiences. I know Steve Jobs was into, the Eastern philosophies and things like that. And
right.
You read these stories and it's like they all find their way to like be long-term successful.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I read the book Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. Now he's a perfect example of someone that went in from the beginning.
Yeah.
And then was able to, but again, it's less common because first of all, I don't believe anybody's teaching that stuff, and that's not a way of life, especially in America, right? Yeah. Where it's capitalism, it's go, 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 go. Totally. Our parents had to work for a living, like everyone was like, grew up like very, it was labor intensive. I mean, we built this country in 250 years from like nothing.
Yeah.
And so like, I mean, look at all the stuff that we have in such a short period of time. That's on the backs of hard work of our dads and our moms, and
Yeah.
that's ingrained in them. And so like they just think that's the way, so they teach that way and they model that way. And
Yeah.
we don't, until like the '60s. I don't, when did the Yogananda, or what's his name? When did he come over and start to like spread some of that out?
With the Beatles, and I don't know.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
like all the the '60s and '70s,
Yeah,
right? When
for
they
sure.
California, like people would come over, they would start doing the meditation, and
I get you.
and that started to like and now it's getting to be more mainstream. I mean, look,
Yeah.
you're talking about it loud and proud. Gino just started talking about it a few years ago. Now I'm talking about it, so it's starting to seep in.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the reasons I think this is an amazing podcast is because I did have my therapist on, and she was very into mindfulness and stuff like that, but I don't have very many people that are comfortable talking about it. But there's a lot of people curious about it. And one thing I have about
But wait, before you go there, there are a couple of things that you said I want to speak to.
Okay.
I'm always mindful of when we make comparisons to the uber successful, the unicorns, the Steve Jobs, the Jeff Bezos. And with all respect to everyone listening and to you, we're not those people. We're not those unicorns. They are unicorns for a reason. So we're regular people, maybe regular plus. Okay. And so when we try to make comparisons to say like, well, look what they did, look at how they do it. It's not that we don't have something to learn from them, because I believe we do. And I believe there's messages in there for all of us in terms of how they built their businesses. But we're most likely not going to build a $1 trillion business or whatever Amazon is, or invent the iPhone that's going to change the world. I mean, look, you have a business that does roofing. I have a business that services copiers.
Yeah.
We're up and down the street people.
Yeah, we're just doing it better than the old
Yeah,
guys.
you know what I'm
before us.
saying?
Yeah. Here's
ahead.
one thing I have to say to that. I wasn't necessarily comparing that. It's just the hustle. So when you start a business from scratch,
Yeah.
I believe that if you don't, it's not that I believe. I'm not saying that we can't do it the other way with mindfulness in the beginning, but I believe that what happens is entrepreneurship is hard enough. And if you don't have a little bit of success early, it's really easy to quit and then go change your mind and say, oh, I got to go do something else. Yeah. Keep changing your mind. So I believe that speed, hustle in the micro to go get that next job, to close that deal, keeps that momentum going. So then that way you can keep cash flow coming in. So that way the business can be sustainable.
But why are you equating mindfulness with going slow? Because mindfulness is not about going slow.
I understand. It's about being aware.
It's about being able
that you can go whatever speed you want. And I get that. And I'm not. But again, this information wasn't out.
Yeah.
20 years ago. No one was talking about this stuff. And so hence that's why we're doing this now. And so I'm just saying most of the entrepreneurs, I'd say 99.9% entrepreneurs that we meet
for sure
have to start out fast. They start out fast and they're not aware.
Yeah.
They literally needed a job, they needed to make money, and they did whatever it takes to get there in spite of themselves, in spite of anything. They're their meat suits out there just running around like a chicken with their head cut off, making deals happen, figuring it all out, disorganized everywhere.
Yeah.
Just like the way Big Fish Contracting started out, just like the way Image One started out.
Yeah.
That is most of us.
Yeah.
That is all of them listening, except for maybe the people that were mindful and decided to start a mindfulness practice or another business because of mindfulness. I'm not saying that can't happen, but usually the first business, if you're an entrepreneur, it started out of a reflection of what's happening in your brain, and it's usually not pleasant. It's like usually it's not a healthy thing for the most part. Those California businesses, there's something different in the medicine out there that maybe get people to think, they dream up. I want to invent some piece of technology that's going to change the world, and maybe they like start tinkering. They're like, and poof, and then they just, I don't know. Or I'm a Midwest guy.
I am too.
Like you're a Midwest guy. I mean, most of our people is either, in Michigan, we're here in Michigan, it's, your dad and your grandpa worked at the car factory. And that's all they know. And where I live is the steel mills. And we ship the steel up to the car guys. And like back and forth. And that's really the world we know. And so like, it's really hard. I think it's a very interesting concept. Are you interviewing me or am I interviewing you?
I'm interviewing you.
Let's get back
That's
in
what I do
control here at the
best.
Big Fish Cares podcast. One more thing about your book, Do Nothing. If you had to distill Do Nothing into its most essential message, what would it be?
Well, be open, have a beginner's mind in everything that you do in your life, and learn how to take time each and every day, as we say now, to be still. I wouldn't have said it that way when I wrote the book. I would have said take some time to be quiet, to be silent, and I do want to say, over time in working with so many entrepreneurs, both through the book, through talks, and through discussions that I have, I really do believe meditation isn't always the best solution, the best idea for everybody. So, in the 10 disciplines, when we come to discipline number 4, be still, we recommend 4 different types of being still, but do them for 30 minutes every day. So, the 4 that we recommend are prayer, meditation, contemplation, or journaling. And maybe you do 2 or 3 of them within a 30-minute period of time. Point is, take 30 minutes, be in silence, let your mind and body settle. Can I say soul?
Yeah.
Let your soul, I'm kidding.
You say whatever
Let
you
your
want.
soul catch up, and that's the beauty of taking just 30 minutes a day. And some people say, dude, I sit down and my mind just like, oh my God, I have to do this. I forgot to do that. And I got to write that down. And I always say, resist the urge. Be in silence and let that all just float away. Whatever's important will come back after 30 minutes. This is all part of the practice of learning how to be mindful in the midst of the hurricane. It's learning how to pause in that moment between stimulus and response. In that millisecond, when somebody really important to you in your life pushes your button and you lose it, you don't have to respond that way. And by the way, you do that in your businesses. And you don't even realize it sometimes. And you shake up people's world and they go home and have dinner with their families and they are talking about leaving your company. And they are talking about what a cruddy culture it is. And I know you don't want that. That's not what you want. You want to be, you became an entrepreneur. You had a vision. Maybe you thought at the beginning you wanted to be rich and famous, or have things, or have unique experiences, or control your own destiny, which, by the way, as an entrepreneur, you can't control your own destiny anyway. You think you can. That's one of the beauties of your mindset, right? But at the end of the day, at a certain point, you start to recognize, you know what? I can't do this alone. I need people around me that are really bought into roofing and doing it better than any other roofing company there is around. And so it's up to us to cultivate a culture where they're really excited to come in and they feel like they're heard and that they're cared for in the totality of their lives. And that's what has them going home and having dinner with their family and saying, God, I love work. It's so cool, this company that I work for. I mean, we do roofing, but you should see how they care about us. It's so special. And like, I sat down with Benny the other day and he was like so present with me. Like he was hanging on every word. And then the family members say, oh, I wish I had a job like that. And that's how you grow a company and turn it into something really special. And you make a difference in the world.
Wow. If you just heard that, you're like, how do I go back and get that into my company? Man, that's impressive. That's really good. I think, man, that got me fired up. Holy cow. Like, I want to go, like, can we stop? I need to get back to Pittsburgh. I need to go have more. Yeah, because what I think happens in entrepreneurship, sometimes we get that one-track mind, like, oh, we got to solve all these problems. We got to go, go, go. We got to change things, right? This isn't working. We got to change that. Oh, hey, man, you suck at doing that. Like, let me tell you about it a little bit, and here's how you can do better. And we're right. We don't slow down, and we're not mindful enough of
Let me
the
give you an
experience
example.
of the team member.
Let me give you an example. A couple things. First of all, we see things that other people can't even comprehend, and we don't understand why they can't comprehend it. Okay? So we're driving 100 miles an hour in a 50-mile-an-hour zone. And at some point, somebody or something pings us, and we go, whoa, I've been going 100. This is actually kind of dangerous. So you know what? I'm going to dial it back to 80. And you know, if you've gone 100 miles an hour, when you're going 80, it feels like you're standing still. So you're going 80 now. And what you notice in the 50-mile-an-hour zone is you're passing all the other people on the road going around 60 because they're already exceeding the speed limit. But that's about as far as they're going to take it because they can't handle going any faster than 60 as you drive by at 80, looking back at them going, why are they going so slow? You see, the point in this is that we don't understand how fast we're going and why everyone can't keep up. But 99.9% of the world can't keep up. And it's our ability to help them understand where we're going clearly and help them be able to do that at the speed that they're pretty comfortable with. Maybe we'll push the limits a little, but they ain't going to go 80. And we got to start coming to terms with that. They're not going our speed and they never will. That's why only 4% of the world are entrepreneurs. Otherwise, everyone would be doing this.
Seems like a lot of people in America are trying to be entrepreneurs right now.
They're trying.
And a lot of
They
them
don't.
a lot of them aren't cut out.
They're not cut out.
But
It looks good
cool
on TV.
Yeah, it looks cool. Yeah. Well, guys like me and you, and some of the entrepreneurs on the social media and stuff like that, make it look easy and look at fun, and they get to see the pictures of the travel and the good life.
Totally.
But there's a lot of pain behind that. I think I want to shift gears because I really want to figure out. I want to get more into the 10 disciplines, a little bit about the book Shine. But you mentioned how you met Gino, because I still don't actually know the real story. I've never actually heard this story before of all right, and you get that he helped you with his business. How long did he help you with his business, like your business?
It was about 5 years.
5 years, and that was back before you sold or after you sold?
It was before we sold and after we sold.
So kind of like during that whole, that fun part of the business. All right. And then what was life like after Gino wasn't helping you with your business? Because that was still a long time ago. And then he went to build, like what's formerly known, like what we know as EOS, but it wasn't called that then, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so what was your relationship with him like that? Let's say after he stopped helping you with his business professionally and before 3 or 4 years ago when 10 Disciplines was formed, I'm assuming it's like a 20-year span.
Yeah, so a couple of things happened along the way. So one, when we sold the business, I said to Gino, I think it's really cool what you're doing. And I had this industry group and people were curious about how we were operating. And one of the guys said, could you teach me how to do that? So I said to Gino, one of the guys wants me to help him with that. And he goes, go ahead, do it. And he said, charge him. I think I charged him a couple $1,000s. And Gino said, you charge him a couple $1,000 and you pay me 10% of it or something. I can't remember. So Gino kind of gave me like a quick overview on how to be an EOS implementer. There was no such thing back then. And I ended up having 2 or 3 clients that I was doing that with on the side. And I hated it. I absolutely hated it.
When did you know you hated it?
I felt so much stress and anxiety running these sessions, and I felt like it was all on my shoulders, so I just was like, this is too much. But I did do that for a blink, and we started to become friends, and so we would meet kind of like I know you saw him yesterday and spent a couple hours with him. We'd go meet at a coffee shop for half a day and do exactly what the two of you just did. We'd just talk, you said, you mentioned you did the check-in. The check-in is Gino's organizational OCD way of having an organic conversation. It like gets the conversation going kind of like in a formal way, and then it can kind of weave its way into, wherever it takes itself. And so we just had all these wonderful conversations for 20 years. And one of the things I was noticing about him was he was living his life in such a particular way. And I would just ask him all these questions about it. How are you doing that? And he kind of dismissed it. Oh, it's easy. Just take August off. I just tell everybody in my life, I'm just taking August off. It's easy. Just go ahead and do it. And it's like, I cannot wrap my head around this, and I tried it. I actually did it for a few weeks. And it takes a whole month off, but I took a few weeks off.
Call that the sabbatical.
Yeah, the sabbatical. Yeah, what he calls the sabbatical. And anyway, so there were all these things. Fast forward, it's around 2020. He writes a book called The EOS Life. He throws in the back of it something called the 10 Disciplines. Mm-hmm. And I was a test reader, as I have been for every one of his books. And I'm reading these 10 disciplines, and I'm going, these are the things I've been, learning from him, trying to do, sometimes successfully, other times not. And here he's finally documented them. This is so cool. And I called him and I said, man, this is what I've been learning and gleaning from you from all these years. I'm so glad you documented them. Fast forward a little bit more. I had a podcast going, and he loved what I was doing. They were doing the audiobook, and they hired me to interview him for a special part of the EOS Life audiobook at the end, bonus section.
That was the best part of the book.
So we got together, and as I was preparing, I got back into these disciplines, and I was like, these are fantastic. And when we were done recording, we went out to lunch, and I said to Gino, what are you doing with these 10 disciplines? These are so powerful. We could create a way to teach these to people and make this into a business. What do you think? And the rest is history. That was 4 years ago.
So that's really cool. Like, I love this origin story of how a business gets started, right? And that's how the 10 disciplines were formed. And before we get a little bit more into like maybe the future of the 10 disciplines, kind of what you guys are doing now with it, what were those early conversations like of like where it could go? What could we do? What's that like?
So, we're talking earlier about how entrepreneurship is kind of a sexy thing these days. It looks like it's so easy. So here you have two successful business people. They've seen it all, seemingly.
Yeah.
Right?
Till tomorrow.
Sitting in a hotel in Detroit, Michigan, napkining, the whole thing you could imagine. Talking about how could we take this to market. So we decided to create a series of videos that would take people through each one of the 10 disciplines. We decide what our investment's going to be. We find a studio. We hire a person to kind of project manage the whole thing for 6 months. And we're both thinking to ourselves, this is amazing. We're going to put this out to the world, and people are going to be buying this while we're sleeping. Because once the video's made, you really don't have to do much. There's no heavy lifting other than marketing, right? The product was going to be at a price point where you weren't going to do one-to-one sales. So this was exciting. And so we go live.
Anything different than the other businesses we've been doing in the rest of our previous lives, right? We're going to make this thing like make money while we sleep.
Yeah, I was so excited.
And we're pumped up about it. It's good content.
So we go live. Literally within an hour, we make our first sale. And I'm sitting here going, oh, here we go. And then it was crickets for like 7 days.
And when you say go live, just like shoot out an email, make a post about it.
Yeah, I don't even remember what it was we all did, honestly. And it was just crickets. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on? And then there was a little bit of activity, and then it was crickets, and then it just wasn't, it wasn't happening. And what I was noticing is I could see the people's progress who had purchased it, which I think there was about 35 people that had purchased it in the first month. But I noticed they weren't going through the entire program. They'd go through 2 or 3 and they'd stop.
Well, it's a typical entrepreneur. We
Totally.
love to buy stuff.
I'm
And then
thinking-
yeah.
I'm thi-
You know how many subscriptions I'm signed up for the auto renew? I'm like, I don't remember buying that.
So I started calling them up and I'd say, hey, how's it going? And they say, oh yeah, the disciplines. Yeah, I love it. I said, yeah, but you started it like, 3 weeks ago and you stopped. And I know, I got busy. I got to get
The
back to it.
accountability monsters come
Yeah.
in. Now they really don't want you to call again because like they don't want to.
And I was like, if people aren't going through this, this isn't going to be a good program. And I mean this from my heart. I did not want to have a business where people were not getting the full value out of it. And I'm just taking their money. It was just like, it wasn't in my DNA to do that. It isn't. And so I said, Gino, we got to take a pause. I need to think about this. Let's just time out. Like 10-year thinking is discipline number 1. We want to impact 1 million driven entrepreneurs in the next 10 years. So I got all the time in the world. Let's think about this. And I had an idea to do it live and hold people accountable and do a 10-week program. And so that was the next iteration. So now we had 2 products. You could do what we call the self-study program, or you could do it live. And then I just started hitting the phones.
So was this before the book Shine came out, or was this after
Yes.
the book Shine came out?
There was no shine.
There was no Shine book. This is just like a formulation of the 10 disciplines at the back of the EOS Life.
Yeah.
We're going to take this to the world.
Yep.
And you did it through the self-study, the video modules. Then you started doing the 10-week group coaching.
That's right.
Because I've been through that.
went through it, yeah.
Well, because I couldn't go through a video module. Now, there's some people that listen that the video modules on their own time, their
Yeah.
own pace. They can do it in the evening, early mornings. Because with the group coaching, it's the same time, same day of the week. It's like an L10 meeting. It's like same agenda,
That's right.
different discipline, but like
That's
it's
the
like
accountability.
yeah, it's like, and that's good, but that's what forces a guy like me like to show up, right? To be accountable. And then I'm like, and then they're expecting me to be there. I can't just slough it off. I can't say I'm busy, don't have a meeting because like, I'm living my EOS life. I should be able to show up to a meeting like this, or I should probably not necessarily ready for it. But then I've realized through the 10 disciplines, you're always ready for it. You can do it as an early stage entrepreneur. You can do it right when you're at that rocket fuel level, ready to combine forces. You can do it, in the middle of your traction life. You can do it in your EOS life. And you can do it for any time in your life. Yeah. And I believe too, and maybe we can get into this, is that these disciplines aren't really just, they may seem geared towards entrepreneurial, but I really believe that there's like, even if you're not an entrepreneur, that like there's a lot of goodness in there just for anyone.
Totally.
Now, there's some of them that are like, oh, well, like that doesn't apply to me. We can get into that. But I think it's very fascinating that you really started just like with any other business. Like, it's just like, we're going to test something, figure it out.
You got it.
We're not just going to be successful automatically, obviously, because that didn't happen.
And I believe in entrepreneurship. You go down one path, you have an idea, and you learn, and then you shift. You see it all the time. You hear stories all the time about companies that started with one idea and one premise, and then they became highly successful in something that was sort of related but different. And you hear about the whole series of events that led into that. Even Image One, we thought our business was remanufacturing toner cartridges for the rest of our life. And that shifted within a few years. And that's not even part of the company anymore.
Does anybody even use toner cartridges anymore?
Yes, they do.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's still a thing.
I hate printers.
Yeah, right. We thrive on that.
Big dinosaur sitting in the office.
Hate it, but need it.
Yeah. So, in that early days, what was your role in the business? What was Gino's role in the business?
I was doing everything, just like any startup entrepreneur. I was wearing every hat.
Is that the sequel to your book, Do Nothing, Do Everything?
Well, it's doing it with peace.
There you
Like
go.
I was telling you before.
Yeah.
It isn't about going slow necessarily. It's about maintaining equanimity in the midst of all the craziness.
Equanimity.
Yes.
Ooh, that's a big word for Benny Fisher. Go ahead and tell me what that means.
Well, it's just it's everything is equal. Everything that's going on is there's a calm within all of that, and being able to operate in that mode, even when things, might seem to others as though it's out of control.
This 10 disciplines. First of all, if you've listened to my podcast, if you go back a few episodes to how to balance ambition and find peace, which was Gino Wickman, he runs through the 10 disciplines like super quick at the end. That was a 2-hour podcast. If you want to catch the all 10 disciplines, we may have a chance to go over them quickly, but there's the book, there's the Shine book. If you should go read Shine, those disciplines, and there's 3 discoveries that are also in there. Me and Gino dive into those 3 discoveries really deep. So if you want more information, that's in the podcast. If you want the 10 disciplines, you can check their Shed and Shine podcast out and read. I just say read the book.
Yeah.
There's the book, and then there's the after book that you did the interview, another interview, which was, I thought, even better than the EOS, because you're getting good at this interview stuff, right? And so, there's just so much gold in there. But who is this, who is the 10 disciplines for? Tell me about that.
So, first of all, working with Gino, you're going to start and be really focused. So driven entrepreneurs are our target market. That said, driven people, the 10 disciplines apply to driven people. So if we want to get uber visionary, which we do sometimes for fun, we can think of how we can expand the 10 disciplines into many different markets. You can think about people like real estate agents could totally use the 10 disciplines. Now I'm going to stop right there because it's not even worth going down that rabbit hole. Right now, we're focused on driven entrepreneurs. Sometimes they bring in their leadership team members to our group coaching programs. Sometimes we have business coaches that are coming into our programs as well. So, but we're focused on driven entrepreneurs.
If people, what do you recommend if somebody's been completely unaware of this work? You, Gino, some people don't even know who Gino Wickman is, or Rob Dube, or this whole Shine 10 disciplines. Is the first step reading the book, or is there other entry points? What do you advise as an entry point to even being curious about this?
I do think reading the book's the easiest way to enter into it. So you can, buy the book and read it, listen to it. We all have all the ways of doing it.
$20 in 4 hours and you're good, right?
Absolutely. 100%.
I put it on 1.3x speed too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. For sure.
Makes me engaged.
Yeah, it makes my voice sound better too when you listen. Too slow when I talk.
Have you... I know this is early on. I know you guys have only been doing this for 3 years now?
4 years.
4 years. Wow. a whole election cycle.
Absolutely.
There we go.
We've gone through 2 of them.
Well, that's good. So has there been any stories of transformation that someone went through the 10 disciplines and saw a profound transformation in their life?
Oh, yeah. So I won't use names, and I'll be...
You're going to protect the innocent?
Well, we do have great confidentiality.
Good.
But I mean, I hear stories like people who began to implement the 10 disciplines, start to really hone in on some of them, delegate. Discipline number 7 is don't do $25 an hour work. So really start delegating things off, getting themselves free from so much of the stuff that they've been mired in for so long in their business. I remember a story somebody shared with me about he finally felt like he could spend time with his mom, fully present, for 2 full days. And it was a super emotional thing for him that he was able to do that. Imagine that for a second. This was a very challenging thing for this individual.
It's challenging for every entrepreneur.
Yeah, it is.
And so I believe that I picked up that skill set through the Traction series, right? And with the Delegate and Elevate.
Yeah.
To me, that was my favorite tool. That and the L10 meeting made me feel like a superpower entrepreneur. Like if I could just say, hey, if you had to just pick one or two things out of that, for me as an entrepreneur, those were the two biggest skills that I learned early on that really shaped me into becoming a better CEO or a better visionary.
Yeah.
And basically, you know, when you do that and you figure out like, oh, what you don't like to do and what you're not good at, and you can give that to somebody else, whether it's $25 an hour, $15 an hour, $100 an hour, doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Get it off your plate. Then you can choose what you do with that extra time, whether you want to go work more at what you love or spend time with mom, right?
That's right. You got it. Other stories that come to mind. Discipline number 1 is 10-year thinking. In the group coaching program, we have each person create a 10-year thinking vision.
That's fun, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
That was,
right. I mean,
because
yeah.
that's the fun part. Imagining what like your life is going to be like in 10 years.
Yeah.
And then writing it out, like journaling about it, and then like, you know, saying it a couple times, you know, sharing it with a couple people, modifying a little bit.
You got it.
I think you talk about you should like really look at that almost every day or at least once a week and keep tweaking and shifting and always be thinking about it, right?
You got it.
It's not a target that we just set and forget. Maybe
That's right.
Like our business. That's the one thing I think we get in trouble at business. We have that annual meeting. Oh, we're gonna do 50 million. And then everybody just like, all right, whatever, like, we get back to life. But this 10-year thinking though is constantly in your mind, and that shapes your decision making, right?
That does. It informs all your actions in the present moment. 10-year thinking is shifting your mindset from short-term thinking to thinking in 10-year timeframes or 25-year timeframe, whatever you want to choose. And that allows you to come to this moment and ask yourself, is what I'm about to do right now in alignment with where I see my life in 10 years? And that's really powerful. And one of the things that I always encourage people to do in the group coaching program is if they have somebody very important to them in their life, a significant other, a life partner, a spouse, do the 10-year thinking exercise with them. After all, you're on this journey with them. Shouldn't they have some say in where this whole thing is going? And that's a story that I want to share, is how many times people come back to me and say, I did that with my spouse and we were crying. We were so inspired about and we had never thought about this together. And it's so heartwarming when I hear those kinds of stories. So
to me, it's so much better. A lot of people are going to, a lot of our listeners are business people, entrepreneurs. So they're constantly just thinking about, all right, what little nugget can I help make my business life better? But this work for me has just made my personal life just so much better.
Yeah.
That same experience of like, hey, I talked to my wife about like, what's the vision for your life? What's your 10-year thinking? What's my 10-year thinking? We do a whiteboard. So we put it on a whiteboard and then we figure out how can we make both work together.
There you go.
So that way you can still be the individual, but then also have like, that way it's fun for each other. The excitement that creates in a marriage or a partnership is like so beautiful, which I then believe you entrepreneurs who are like trying to 10x your business and get, make more money, make more profit. You as a better person is going to translate into you as a better leader. Absolutely.
And I use that word equanimity. Listen.
Can I spell that? We need a spell check for that. I don't know
EQUAN. Here's the thing. You can put all your time and effort into your business, and maybe there's something behind this whole thing around, I need to provide a better life for my family than I had. Maybe there's some sort of proving to the world that you're good enough, that you can do something that so many people didn't see in you. Whatever it is that's going on underneath the hood, underneath the surface, when you can now start to bring that and incorporate it with somebody very special to you in your life and balance this with them, you aren't now putting all your focus on your entrepreneurial career and your business success. You're balancing it. And by balancing it, I believe and have seen that you will have more success in your business because you don't have the angst and anxiety and all the crap that gets stirred up when the balance isn't there.
Yeah, because that energy comes off and it goes to
Yes.
those team members that go home and say, "Man, this business, I don't like this.
Here,
Like
let me
it's
give you
hard."
2 examples. If you're putting all your focus into your business and very little on your spouse, and now all of a sudden you're getting to a point where your marriage is falling apart, how does that affect your business? Like, come on, wake up. You're not going to be as good as a leader when you're going through a divorce. And if you've gone through one, you know that.
Yeah.
There's so much, you're complicating your life so much. What about this? How about your kids? You want to have a better life for them? Do you think they actually care about all the stuff that you're giving them? They like it. Don't get me wrong. It's fun. They like it. But at the end of the day, what do you think they really want from you?
Your time.
They
Your
want
presence.
your presence.
Yeah.
It's not even about the amount of time. It's about you being fully present. And how many of you have sat at the dinner table with your head spinning about 1,000 things that are going on at the office when your kids try to tell you a story and you're not even listening? You're shaking your head like you're
I
like,
feel like we're at church with Rob Dube. You're preaching, brother. This is good, man. Wow, because it's so true.
it's so true. I've been there.
Well, and I think that discipline number 2 ties into that. You know, once you have the 10-year thinking and then you learn how to take time off from away from your business
And
don't-
not think about
think
work.
about it. That's the
Yeah.
hard part I have. It's a 2-part thing. The
Yeah.
take time off is a little tricky. That's why you need to get into the group coaching to really unpack that a little bit deeper, because you can read about it in the book and it kind of sounds like a cool concept. Hey, not one of us know how to actually do that. You know what I mean? Especially with this electronics and the phone, and you know, some of us don't have the assistant, and like being able to take time off and then not think about work is a discipline. It's no different than going to the gym, trying to eat healthy, trying to do better at anything in life. Taking time off then allows you to have that space to focus on what matters most, and whatever that is for you.
Yeah.
As long as it's not work, and it could be anything else. It could be wife, kids. It could be that tree out there. Go spend time with that, right? And wow. And then discipline number 3. You have to know thyself.
Yeah.
I always wonder why know thyself isn't ahead of the first one, and then 10-year thinking, and then take time off. I am always curious about that, because I feel like you got to know thyself before you can figure out what your 10-year thinking is, maybe. But
Well, you need time to know thyself. So you start with the end in mind, like you do with anything. 10-year thinking. What do I see my life in 10 years? Now, taking time off helps you begin to taking time off and not thinking about work the entire time starts to give you the opportunity to potentially do some self-reflection, which is really hard for a lot of us. But once you start doing that, you're getting closer to knowing thyself, because we want you to be yourself 24/7, 365. Let your freak flag fly. That's what we want.
So do you need to be still first, though, then know thyself? So maybe be still should be moved up.
Well, truthfully, it can get blurred, and we did an exercise.
They're ingredients, right? And you
They're
can kind of mix them together and put
You might remember you're in our True Self Mastermind, and we did an exercise.
I'm in all the stuff, by the way. Full disclaimer, I am all the way sucked into this rabbit hole.
But we did an exercise where we tried to reinforce for you how the 10 disciplines, when working together, is like an intricate web. And when that web is brought together, it's virtually impossible to break. That's a strong foundation. And when you have a strong foundation, then you can build on top of it. And that's the inner work. That's where you're going. The inner work. And that can feel scary for people. There's a great saying, a quote that I say all the time. My mind is like a bad neighborhood. I try to never go there alone. So my mind is like a bad neighborhood. I try to never go there alone. So if you notice yourself keeping yourself busy all the time, it's because your subconscious knows exactly what's going to happen. Your ego knows exactly what's going to happen when you slow yourself down. It's going to all come rushing up. And having been on retreat, that's what happens. And it's friggin' painful and scary sometimes. And it's also quite beautiful, by the way. Yeah, there's a lot of beauty that comes out of that, but your ego's protecting you. It doesn't want all this to rush out. Keep it shoved down there. Keep it shoved down there. Don't address it. Don't address it. Keep going. Keep being busy. You're doing the right thing. But no, you're not, because you need to release it. You have to let it go. These are blocks in your system. And when you unblock it, you are free. You are in jail. And you have the keys. You're holding the keys to get yourself out, but you refuse to use them.
The ultimate conundrum. And when you talk about that bad neighborhood, I mean, I have a funny story. So I drove from Pittsburgh up to Detroit, spent a day in Detroit, kind of halfway between Harbor Springs. And if you look on a map, Harbor Springs is almost like Canada. It feels like Canada, but you're still in America. And it's beautiful here, by the way. But I needed some memory cards, right, for the cameras and for the video guys. And so my assistant sent me to the Flint, Michigan Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
I have not been in a Flint, Michigan Walmart before, and I felt like I was a little, I was nervous. I don't know why. I was just a little nervous. It was definitely a different experience.
Well, I've been to Flint many times, and like many big cities, it has its, challenge, scary areas, and it has some really amazing. Flint, Michigan is an amazing place. I do mean this. I know I sound like the mayor of Flint,
yeah.
But I'm not. It's not like I've spent a ton of time there, but the folks there and the industries that have gone, these are hard. This is a hard-working community. This is salt of the earth, man. Like, you go there and you're rolling up your sleeves.
Yeah, well, it reminds me of small town abandoned where the steel mills kind of left town in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And then what happens? The area gets a little bit just more.
Yeah.
I don't know, just harder, right? It's like a harder time.
But man, people show up with such love.
Yeah.
They had a water issue that was pretty well known.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Imagine
your whole town's in the news, national news.
You can't drink your water out of your tap. Imagine that. Or imagine you had been, and it was not good for many years. And then you found out and you were like, okay, I've been drinking this for many years and now I can't even drink it. And the communities were coming together, bringing all these homes, bottled water, doing the best that they could through this, really, it would seem like impossible circumstances. And, they just, resilience. Well,
that was a big rabbit trail.
Yeah.
Back to the 10 disciplines.
Sorry.
That's all right. That's what happens when two visionaries get to hang out together. So we talked a little bit about, the first, 4 disciplines. Be still is number 4. Know thyself. There's lots of good stuff out there on knowing thyself, whether you take some assessments, whether you ask some people, whether you just get real still with yourself and really figure out, what your strengths are, what some opportunities may be. But number 5, and this, according to you guys, you and Gino, once you have the first 5, kind of they're the foundational disciplines, everything kind of shapes off of you being really good at these. The other ones kind of fall into place because it makes a little bit more sense from what is that my
sort of? Right? I mean, the first 5 help you understand yourself better. So that's why you might call them
it's like a foundational system.
Yeah.
To because you need all 5 of them weaving together to create really good, I believe, good flow. Then the other ones optimize that and make you shine even brighter.
Yeah.
But number 5, which is know your 100%. That's that's the container, right? That's your work container of we already know how many days off we're going to take by taking time off, which you can't think about work. That's the trick. I'm still not there yet. I'm very weak in that area, if I'm going to be completely honest. But it's all right, how many hours a week I'm going to work?
Yeah.
And how many weeks
per year.
And how many weeks per year?
Yeah.
That's hard for a lot of people to figure out, especially when it's your first pass at it. So if somebody goes and reads the book and they're trying to master all of these, that one's challenging because first of all, I think it's always changing, and I feel like you got to tweak and tweak and tweak and tweak. When you say be still for 30 minutes, you either are or you're not. There's not a whole lot of room for wiggle. Now you can start with 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 30 minutes, but once you get to your 30, I'm all right, check. I can go deeper in that 30, but I can put a container on that. But work and entrepreneurialism there's a lot of demand. Sometimes there's busy seasons, slow seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, you get kids, and then you got to like take, there's just a lot of ebbs and flows. Anything that you want to comment about, know your 100%.
Yeah, first of all, you get to choose. With all the disciplines, you get to choose. It's your life. You can customize them. We kind of set it up and teach it to you in a particular way. And then to use know your 100% as an example, for some people, their 100% is 80 hours a week. And for others, it's 30. So, and it doesn't have to be in that range, whatever you want it to be. And so, yeah, you do have to start tweaking it. But what we encourage you to do is, in this period of time, let's just call it 40 for the sake of this discussion. In your 40 hours, this is where you deliver your maximum value to the world. This is what is important. This is where you are full. This is where you bring your full energy. It's what you're best at. Why are you doing other things you're not best at? It makes no sense. So what are the amount of hours where you can have the highest level of energy to do that?
I also think the good thing about putting a boundary, like a time on the boundary, is most driven entrepreneurs are like, hey, if you give me a deadline, I'm actually going to be more productive anyway.
Yeah.
If I just have an open-ended blank check for as much, first of all, I'll procrastinate. Then I'll drag stuff out. Then I'll work later at night, and and then you get really out of sync, right? And so that's what I like about that discipline. It kind of gives you, if you can be disciplined at actually shutting it off, and again, the first time you do this, I found myself oh yeah, I'll shut it off. But then I'm like, no, I just want to get a little bit more done. I just want to get a little bit more done. And you're the only one that's there. It's not like you have a personal trainer. You guys haven't come out with the personal trainer 10 discipline thing where you can literally there's a shot collar on you. Yeah, there's a buzzer.
Must leave.
One day, with AI and all the technology and the wearables, we'll be able to figure that out. You'll be wearing your 10 discipline Under Armour shirt or something, and it'll know all the time when you're not in one of your disciplines. Zap! But yeah, then we get to discipline number 6, which is one that I'm actually having a lot of fun with.
Good. I love that.
Say no often.
Yeah.
Man, that's so good, because there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that love saying yes. We get where we're at or we think we get where we're at by saying yes to new things, and yes, 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 yes. And Tony Robbins is a yes guy. There's a lot of yes people that are.
There are so many philosophies around saying yes. And in the early days of a business, sometimes you do have to say yes. You have to look at all opportunities and try to open up all kinds of doors. But there's a certain point where that shifts and you're there. And when you know you're 100% and you are working within a container, now that tests the say no discipline. Because you have to say, now wait, I only have so much time.
Your time's more valuable.
Yeah, exactly.
Way more valuable.
Yeah.
So then you start saying, you could say no to some of the stupid stuff that you shouldn't be doing.
Right.
Because you can't fit it all in.
There you go. Exactly. And entrepreneurs, driven, visionaries, they think they can accomplish everything. They truly believe it in their mind. I'm the same way. I think I can do it all. Oh yeah, I'll take that. I'll figure it out. And the next thing you know, you're on the verge of burnout, and then you are burnt out. But we're so resilient that we work in a state of burnout sometimes, and we don't even recognize it. Now, I work with driven entrepreneurs all the time, and I can see it in their energy. It's so obvious to me, and they don't see it. Mm-hmm. They do not see it. So many of the people probably listening to this, many of them are probably burnt out and they don't know any different. Mm. And guess what happens when they take time off? They're exhausted. Their nervous system shuts down. I hear a lot of people say when they're getting to go on vacation, they get sick because their body energetically, their body knows we're about to shift into slow down mode. And it starts shutting down. Because before, it was amped up all the time and going so fast and really out of control. And the body can't do that. It can't keep doing that. And you're not as good. Look, you're only good at a handful of things. There's really just a handful of things. And when you get really clear about those things, and there's all kinds of ways to figure that out, so go out and find them all. Figure out what you're really awesome at. Why wouldn't you just do those things? They give you the most energy. You're awesome at it, and it's going to help you grow your business and have a better business, more successful business. And by the way, you'll have a more successful life, whatever that means. Why wouldn't you do that? I don't even understand. It's so confusing to me.
Yeah.
It's because you're asleep.
The one thing I've learned, because some people, when they just read that, say no, often, there's the people that are like, no, 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 no. What I've learned is how to say no with grace and how to say no, then give people options, right? And Gino's really massive.
Where'd you learn that?
You and Gino. You and Gino.
In our group coaching program.
Yeah. And then I've seen it at work, right? Like I've seen the ways that you guys say no and say, oh, I can't do that, but here, so-and-so probably could do that, or so-and-so could do that, or let me refer you to this person.
You got it.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, be helpful.
Yeah, be helpful. That's good. Discipline 7, we covered it a little bit. $25 an hour work. There's lots of stuff out there on that.
Put everything in one place is 8.
Put everything in one place.
There you go.
So Rob's got me on the remarkable journey.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm still testing it out. It's much better than we're having notes in my iPhone. I'd have, Post-it notes on my desk, legal pads everywhere. I was like I just had stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure that out. And a good system for that.
It doesn't have to be remarkable.
No, sure.
Yeah, Gino uses a yellow legal pad.
Which,
so whatever it is, just find the one place.
Yeah.
Why is that important? It's because you don't have to be searching all over the place like what you were saying. And that takes up mind share. It takes up space in your mind. And we want to open up that space so you can focus on that handful of things that you're amazing at, do them really, really well, which will help you grow your business, be more successful, and have a more balanced life.
And then as long as you prepare every night, then you're very consistent at everything.
That's right. You must prepare every night.
Discipline
that way your
9.
mind knows what's happening tomorrow. It literally takes 5 minutes. It's not a big commitment. The word discipline sounds scary to a lot of people.
Really scary.
They say that to me all the time. I don't know. I'm not a disciplined person. It's true. I get that. But so many of them are actually really easy. They're hard to learn. This is a hard program. You must be committed to it. But when you are committed to it, you will learn that it's not all that difficult. Like to prepare every night for 5 minutes, it's not that hard.
It's for most of us, it's just hard being consistent with it.
Well,
that's the discipline. Where it
do you brush your teeth?
Sure. Again, but that was hardwired into us at 4 years old.
And so that's what we need to do. We start hardwiring ourselves into that routine. Because I don't like routine, actually. What I want is a set of what we call disciplines that sets I want a strong foundation so I can have more freedom. So why not do that? I'm like all for putting a little bit into having a strong foundation so I can have a lot of freedom.
I like that. And then the last one, I have a question for you on be humble, which is discipline number 10. Do you think if you do all 9 really well that you automatically start becoming more humble? Or is that completely different and it's just a discipline that's at the end? Humble versus arrogant, there's the scale.
I don't think it's inherent. Yeah, I think you could be really arrogant and go through it all. So I would put its own emphasis on being humble, and we always add into that being grateful. And, one of the things, most of the people I talk to genuinely believe that they are humble people, and I do believe that they are to a certain degree, but it can be very subtle. And the thing that I always challenge people with, and you can practice this exercise for everybody listening, is start to pay close attention to little judgments you have throughout the day. Because those judgments are a tick mark on your humble scale.
That's so good. All right. Well, as we wrap this up, thank you again for
Thank you, buddy.
like going through those really quick. I wasn't actually expecting to do that, but I thought that was good. It was more conversational, more story. It's much more disciplined inside the book and inside the study. But hopefully that was a little appetizer to get you a little bit more
Yeah.
interested.
Yeah.
What do you think the future of 10 disciplines look like? What do you envision like 10 disciplines 10 years from now? And what kind of impact do you hope that has on the world?
We will impact 1 million driven entrepreneurs. How we do that, I have no idea.
That's up to that guy.
And I'm completely open to the possibility. Right?
The integrator
Rob,
of
our
10
integrator.
disciplines is actually behind the camera, who actually helps set up all the cameras, believe it or not. That's a whole other podcast. So we don't know how.
But here's why I want to share that with you, because I believe entrepreneurship is one of the things I love about entrepreneurship is it is a life test for each and every one of us to look deeply inside and really challenge why we're doing the things that we're doing, to really ask ourselves the big questions. And being an entrepreneur has a little bit of freedom within there to really say, like, why am I building this? Why am I doing that? Why do I have to be the person who's, at the forefront of it all? Do I need to be the person who's at the fore? There's a lot of identity that gets wrapped up in us as entrepreneurs. We become the person who is the image one guy or the do nothing guy or whatever it is. And so that's a beautiful thing that we get to experience if we're willing to open our mind and become more self-aware as we go through this journey. So where does the 10 disciplines take us? What I'm open to is wherever the paths take me and take us as a company. And I don't know what that looks like down the line. I'm just very open-minded to what it'll be. And so I'm excited about it because there's so many places it could go, and we'll see if any of them actually click.
Yeah, that's good. Let's talk about what's one discipline that you've been struggling with a lot lately over the course of like maybe the last 30 to 60 days?
I wish I had a great answer for you. I really am not struggling with them. Yeah. I might have to eat my own dog food, if you know what I mean. I've got to live these 100%.
All right, maybe let me ask you a different way. What's the one discipline that you think you still have a little bit more that you wish that that you want to go deeper in, or you want to?
Well, discipline 3, know thyself, is if you really want to go deep into it, which the book does at the beginning, and we call that the 3 discoveries to freeing your true self. That's going deep with discipline number 3, know thyself. And that's a lifelong journey. And so am I struggling with it? No. But I'm always, and I don't even want to say I'm always very aware of, I wonder what the next layer is that I'm going to shed.
So more curiosity about knowing that you've only scratched the surface, even though I don't know. But compared to a lot of people, you've went really deep with knowing thyself. But you also did know once you get in there, you can just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper, right? It's like the ocean, right? Like you can just go deep.
Let me share an example. So, and for some, this might be going to, like, whoa, what's he talking about there?
Disclaimer, if you don't want to hear something deep, just mute it. That's actually going to make them listen more now.
Right, exactly. I go to an astrologist. And in my last...
Is that like going to an oncologist?
No, that's way worse. And I've done that too at my age. So I see her a few times a year, usually in person. She's out in Colorado. And the last time I saw her was in September. And we were going through it. And she said something to me about my power. And she had said this in the past, but it never landed with me the right way. And so I said to her, I don't know, you've said this in the past, and every time you say something about me and my power or something like that, it just does not land. Like, it's not resonating. And she said, well, that's interesting. Like, let's get curious about that. And as the words were coming through her mouth, it hit me. And I just started crying. Power as a word does not work for me, because when I was growing up and experiencing a trauma where I was being sexually abused by adults, I had no power. They had power over me. And I don't want power over anybody. I don't want anybody to experience that with me. It's just a word, but boy, did it hit me hard. And I never understood until that moment. And I shed a layer. I shed a layer at that moment. Did I know that was going to happen? Was I working to have that happen? No. I was just open and curious around the possibilities, the genuine possibilities of what could be uncovered in the present moment if I was paying enough attention.
Yeah, and there's people out there listening right now that won't ever be able to uncover that until they become more aware to be able to even sit still long enough, or to have an experience like that with
That's
this
right.
person that you met, that could
That's right.
and be open and curious enough not to shut it off the first time or the second time, because obviously you've met this person before and she's said things and you're like, cringy, right?
Yeah.
But you still went and got a little bit more, and then wow. That's cute. I wonder, I start to wonder now, like in my life, or what have I heard 3 or 4 times? It didn't feel right, that I just need to hear one more time to actually, for it all to click.
Yeah.
Like that.
We're getting winks all the time, every day. We're asleep. We're going through life asleep. And until you start opening yourself up, and there's to do that, you've got to find time for stillness. It's a practice. And when you start opening yourself up, you start to notice things in a different type of quality. A lot of times in life, things don't go the way we want them to. What's going on there? We're trying to control an outcome because we don't want to have pain. Instead of just accepting whatever's happening in the present moment and moving things and having the mindset of what I like to call proper effort. Like, you can't just sit back and go, oh, whatever happens. No, you make some proper effort. You don't have to push. It doesn't have to feel so like, oh, I got to fix this. It doesn't have to be that way.
You also just not to blow over, though, either.
Yeah, you can't just say,
you're just standing steady.
Yeah, steady. What's happening here? Where is the beauty in this moment? That in a moment that might be where we might be bubbling up with frustration, like I'm off track. I had a schedule and now I'm not on schedule. Whatever the things are that are going on that just work us up into a tizzy. There's beauty in those moments if you learn how to pause and kind of slow yourself down. And I'm not talking about in terms of movement. I'm just talking in terms of just like wake up and pay attention to what's going on. There's something going on here for you to pay attention to, and you're closing your mind because you're so focused on either wanting to fix it in this very moment or feeling agitated that it isn't going exactly the way you hoped it would. As if you could control anything in your life. You can't. You must let go.
Well, this has been one of the most fascinating episodes for a couple of different reasons. First of all, I'm in Harbor Springs, Michigan, and I also just got...
That's the most fascinating of the whole thing.
Yeah, no. I got the inside secrets to how this 10 disciplines was created. I learned a lot today, and if you guys are interested in learning more, I definitely recommend reading the book Shine. Gino Wickman, Rob Dube, co-authors. Go to the website, 10disciplines.com.
The 10disciplines.com.
Oh, the 10disciplines.com. Yeah. It'll be in the show notes. Self-study, group coaching, true self-mastermind. Once you get past the group coaching, who knows what the future is going to look like. You can start learning those things now at any stage of your entrepreneurial journey. Or even if you're not an entrepreneur, but definitely, it's changed my life. I will tell you that. So I recently went through a wild and crazy storm in my business life over the last in late August, and doing this work 3 to 6 months before that, being aware of the work for the last 3 years, it's really helped me be still in the middle of a storm and just flow. Bonus content, floating. Thanks again, Rob.
Thank you, Benny. I'm grateful to you.